Welcome to In Real Life, Foster Care Unfiltered, where real foster families share their journeys, the challenges, joys, and life-changing impact of opening their hearts and homes. In each episode, we explore the experiences of foster parents and the difference they make, with insights and guidance from Children's Home Society of North Carolina. If you've ever wondered what it takes to foster, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome, listeners, and welcome back to In Real Life, Foster Care Unfiltered. Today, we have a lovely panel of guests who are going to allow us a little glimpse into their lives as we talk a little bit about transracial fostering and adoption. And I'm going to start with our first guest, and we're just going to go in alphabetical order here. So, Ashley, you're up.
Hi, my name is Ashley. My husband and I have been licensed foster parents for about 2 years now. We got licensed on a Friday and got our first placements on Tuesday. We have 5 biological children and fostered 2 more siblings, and we're able to adopt them after about 1.5 years of fostering them. So we have just loved how we have grown our family in this way, and they've just joined and fit right in.
Awesome. Full house, full hearts, right?
Yes,
Sounds
absolutely.
As we're talking about transracial fostering and adoption, can you tell us a little bit about the racial composition of your family, Ashley?
Oh, of course. So, of course, we've got our biological children are all Caucasian, like my husband and myself. But our 2 new little ones are African American. And they, again, just fit right in with us. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Ashley.
Yeah.
In the spirit of alphabetism, is that a word? I may have just made that up. But that would mean, Jeff, you're next.
Fair enough. My name is Jeff, and my wife and I got started with our family a little bit later in life, and we could not have biological children of our own. We went through a long infertility journey, and so we ended up adopting both of our 2 children domestically from birth. And so we have a 10-year-old son and a 7-year-old, a now very excited to be 7-year-old daughter. And she just had her birthday, and it was the best thing ever. And in terms of our ethnic mix in our family, I and my wife are Caucasian, we're white, and our son his birth father is black and his birth mother is white. So he is, most folks would say that he presents as black, and our daughter generally, but almost everyone would say that she presents as white as well.
Thank you for that, Jeff.
Sure.
And last but certainly not least, Tori, if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your family.
Hello, I am Tori Bracier Weathers, and I have an amazing family. Like Jeff, my ex-husband and I could not start our family through biological means, but we always knew we would foster and adopt just because that was something close to our heart with his family as well as within my family. Mm-hmm. So we became licensed foster parents actually through Children's Home Society of North Carolina. And I have been with my little crew, that's my name, for my 3 children since they were 2 days old, my daughter, 10 months old, my son, and 2 years old, my oldest son. They're currently 11, 8, and 9, and my 8-year-old is going on 18.
Of course he is.
But what makes our family different is that we are also transracial, but I am African American and my children are Caucasian. So we have a totally different set of circumstances and things that we experience on a daily basis that we just didn't know we were going to experience. But, our whole motto is always love makes our family, and love is greater than DNA. And we love big over here.
I love that. Love is greater than DNA. I like that. Yeah. Can't wait to hear more about your sweet families. So maybe we can start with a little bit about, and it may have been a chosen path, it may have been a path that was chosen for you, but if you all can tell us a little bit about the transracial piece of, was that something that you were always open to, or how did you end up on the transracial parenting journey and your fostering and adoption journeys? And whoever wants to answer, feel free to come off and talk.
I can start.
Sure.
The idea of, we didn't know all the options that were available for us. I mean, we'd never really even thought about the idea of race at all. The only thing that we knew, that my wife and I knew, that when you're looking to, typically when you're looking to adopt, there's a whole list of filters that we were given, and all the way up to, do you feel like you could take on a child with special needs in varying levels of severity? And so all these different questions and all these different filters started stacking up on top of each other, and we started scratching our heads and said, well, what are we open to? And so we decided that we would be open to any ethnic background, and that's how that came about for us. And so, with that, I mean, we ended up adopting our son, who is African American. And when it came to adopting our daughter, this is the ironic thing, is that we were thinking about, we didn't want our son to be the only one in our family that was not obviously Caucasian. And so we literally put on the filters, say everything but not white, And so we were, I was secretly hoping for, hey, let's get someone, let's get someone who comes from a Latin background or something like that, just so it's clearly, we're together by purpose.
Yeah.
And so that actually ended up not happening, because just as it turns out, almost everyone who looks at our daughter says, oh, well, she's white. So we don't know if that's going to be an issue at some point for our son, if he's going to feel like he just doesn't fit in or something like that. But it hasn't been an issue as of now.
Okay. And to tell us again, Jeff, your son is how old currently?
He's
I know
10.
your daughter just turned 7. I remember
yes.
that.
Yeah. He's a happy guy.
Awesome.
He's a happy 10-year-old, loves soccer, loves playing with his friends. They're out playing in the snow even right now.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jeff. Tori, what about you?
So when I was on my journey to parenthood, I did not care. Like literally did not have a care. I had an awesome set of social workers, and they were like, just be very honest about the types of children that you could parent. Because I have a big heart. I mean, my first career, I was an educator for 23 years, working in Title I communities, diverse communities. I always loved working with children and families. So my ex-husband's family is very diverse in terms of ethnicity and race. And so is my family. So we did not care. We was like, they could be purple with stripes and green hair. We just wanted the opportunity to love and grow a family. But we also had to recognize that there was our family care, because in some instances you have, whether your family is African American or Caucasian or anywhere in between, where people are like, I don't know if I want that person or those people, or acceptance of that person or these people. So we did have some conversations with our families about that, because my ex-husband's the only child. His parents were like, I do not care. What are grandchildren? What grandchildren have? Just bring them on.
Yeah.
And my family also has been very accepting. And so what we just had to navigate is systems that didn't ask questions and just make assumptions.
Yeah.
Because I've had my daughter, for example, since she was 2 days old. No one ever asked me when I took her to her doctor's appointments what was her race or ethnicity, but they just checked the box African American. Now, she presents as Caucasian. She is very pale with blue eyes, but no one asked me that. And so when I was looking at her paper, I was like, well, that's not what she is. But when it's time to do the adoption, I'll fix all this stuff later if it gets to that. But we simply did not have a preference. I have been asked the question like, hey, Tori, why didn't you adopt the Black kids? And my response to that is, God chose them for me. I did not go and select and handpick a child. They were given to me with purpose and intention. And they just happened to be of a different race and ethnicity than me.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that forward. I've heard other African American adoptive parents who have adopted children who were of Caucasian or white heritage have similar questions from other African American people. So that's interesting that you raise that to the community. Yeah. Thank you for that, Tori. Ashley, what about you? Your choice or to engage in transracial parenting? Was it intentional, or was it just the level of openness?
We were open. But I'll be honest in saying that when we were in class, I remember being in class and we had a very diverse group of in foster class, in the foster class, we had a very diverse group. And this topic got brought up and I just asked the question, and I was thankful that I felt comfortable enough to ask the question. But I said, how do the Black people in this class, how do they feel when they see a white couple, fostering an African American child? How does it make you feel? Be honest in how it makes you feel. And they were, my teacher and all the people in the class said, you just love the baby. We're just happy that there are couples who are loving our babies. And so love the babies that you're given. And anyway, I just wanted to make sure, not for my own, because I had no preference. Whoever, just like Tori said, like whoever God sends to our family, like just like my biological children, God placed those children within me. Well, God placed these children with me. And I looked at it exactly the same way. And so I felt like I wanted to know how, like if it were an African American, how they viewed that situation. Is that something that they view favorably or not? Because I knew how I felt positively about it. So I'm glad I was able to ask that question because it made me feel more comfortable going into the situation, being that I had an open heart, knowing that people would be accepting of my open heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I then put on the paper, just whatever you send me, we will be open to. And it's funny because when we got the call for the placement, as you all know, sometimes you get very little information.
Right.
And so I was just told there was a 1-week-old baby girl and she had a 15-month-old brother who was already in foster care. And would I be willing to take both? And I knew God said, say yes. It was that little whisper in my heart that said, say yes to these 2 babies. And so it just started coming out. I told you in the last conversation me and you had, Shannon, that I had not even talked to my husband about having 2. Right. So I just said, yes, give me those babies. I want to love those babies. And then I called my husband and said, I just said yes to 2 babies. We pick up the first one tomorrow. And he just laughed and cried at the same time because we were just so excited. But I got off the phone. I called my family and I said, we just got our call for our first placement. And my mom said, okay, what are the details? I said, what are their names? I said, I don't know. What race are they? I don't know. I didn't ask. And she said, you didn't ask? I said, nope, because I don't care. Like it matters not to me. And so when I first found out was when I spoke to a CHS worker who sent that mass email that they sometimes send out to possible placements. And I replied back to it and being like, I've already chosen, don't pick anybody else. And then she then told me that they're African American, and I just smiled. I just loved it. And I've just, like Jeff was just talking about, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself here, but there were 2 of them. And I was really thankful for that because I thought I didn't want them to feel like, if that's the way God designs your family, then so be it. But I was happy that they do have each other, that they can look into each other's faces and see, you look like me and I look like you. And we both fit into this family, even though we may not look exactly the same. We always joke that we all look alike anyway, but they can look at each other and feel that, they don't feel as unique, I guess, in the setting. So I'm thankful God designed it that way just for us personally.
Thank you, Ashley. I love the intentionality in each of your answers. I think in our society, whether it's fostering or adoption, just in our society, period, 3 things that we are not comfortable about talking with as a society are religion, sex, and race. At all costs, avoid those 3 topics, right? Because you just don't know what you're going to get into, but it's so needed. And each of you sound like you intentionally thought about, not only in the short term, but long term, how would this look not only for my family, but for this child? And we're very intentional in expanding your families. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you did to prepare for your transracial parenting journey? And it may have been at the beginning, and it may have been like you were learning as you were going along. What did you do to prepare? And looking back at it now, is there anything you wish that you would have known or had in that preparation?
So I can jump in. So what's so interesting, again, this is why I say things just lined up for it to be this way. I was a big Pinterest person at the time. So I was researching all the things about preparing for fostering and adopting and all the 3,000 notebooks, which I still use to this day to document your child's need, but just kept coming up in my feed was transracial adoption. I'm like, I didn't even type that in, but okay. The algorithm kept going that way. And so I would read some things, but it was never an African American person with a child that was not African American. It was always either Caucasian or Latinx person with African American children. And so I researched it a little more, didn't really find a lot of information. And then I got the call for my sons. I didn't care what ethnicity or race they were. I remember it was cold, rainy day in Gastonia. My ex-husband and I picked them up, been with them ever since. Lo and behold, we meet their birth mother, find out that she's pregnant. We let the social worker know. If you don't have a foster parent for them, we'll take the baby in too. We didn't know it was a girl at the time. And so about 25 days later, here comes my daughter. So that was my rough preparation. Mm-hmm. But what I had to go and learn from my really close friends was what to do with hair. Because I know what to do with my hair. Just to give a description for the audience, I am an African American woman with natural textured hair. It is 4C. I have my hair in locks that are purple right now. Back then I had a giant Angela Davis afro. I knew what to do with that. But my oldest son had like hair where it looked like he stuck his finger in the socket. It always stuck up no matter what. I don't care how much product I put on it. It would not lay down. Uh-huh. And then my middle son, when he finally grew hair, he had a blonde curly afro that was like a combination of my textured hair and not my textured hair. Then my baby, she came out with all this hair. Then we got credit cap and it fell out. And we didn't get hair again until we were 3. But I still had to ask my friends, because some of my closest friends are not African American, like, what do I do? Do I use Johnson & Johnson shampoo? How long do I use Johnson & Johnson shampoo? There's like 60 other brands of shampoo out here. Which one of these do I use? Mm-hmm. Hairspray, hair bows, bobos that I used to wear when I was a little girl. Like, are they going to work? It was a lot of trial and error. Johnson & Johnson was my friend for a very long time until I figured out, like, hey, my middle son, he needs my hair care products because of the texture of his hair. He could not do the hair washing every day. And Johnson & Johnson just dried it out. He uses the same hair care products that I use. My daughter and my oldest son, they use similar product, but it's not the same. And my daughter, because of her family, guess what? She gets her hair cornrowed. She gets her hair braided. I sent some pictures so you guys can see. She gets box braids. She gets all types of designs. I do whatever she likes that makes her feel comfortable and safe. And I give her the words to say when people question her. Because we have had people be like, oh, your Caucasian daughter has cornrows. Isn't that cultural appropriation? No, it's not. It is her hair. That is her choice. And as I tell Chloe Grace to say, did you pay for it?
I love it.
Because I have to give her the words to say, because that's when kids get in trouble, when they don't know what to say or don't feel confident. But I think if I had to go hindsight, I just really wish there were more resources for parents like mine, because it doesn't, I can say in what I've read, because I've read lots of books from people who were adopted in transracial families. I've been to lots of conferences and hired speakers, and I've not had the unique experience of me and what I have to mitigate. If you listen to one of my former stories, I talk about how Landon was 3 and someone's like, there's your brown mommy. And Landon's like, where? Like, because he doesn't see me as his brown mommy. I am just his mom. But at that point, somebody made it awareness to him that his mom's skin was different from his skin. And we had to have a whole 3-year-old conversation about, like, hey, yes, mommy looks different. Daddy looks different. But we're still your parents and we still love you. And so, I'm now on this journey of like, how do I elevate my experience to help more families like mine? Because I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for raising all of that. Ashley or Jeff, same question. Anything that you did to prepare and what you learned along the way and anything you wish you would have known or had?
I will say my wife and I got caught off guard at in the preparation process when we were adopting Levi, our son. And a social worker asked us at one point, and she said, are you ready to raise this boy as a black man? And at the time, just in the spirit of being unfiltered, at the time, my white wife and I we both thought that was the dumbest question ever. Why would we say raise this boy as a black man? Why not just raise him as a man? That's the mindset that I've been surrounded by my entire life. And I no longer believe that. I no longer believe that that is a stupid question. And the reason is I'd never heard actual stories of black men from, been in relationship with black men and heard stories of what it's like to live as them today. Because, being raised to say, civil rights took care of everything in 1964 and life has been amazing for everyone ever since. Well, it's easy to latch on to that idea if you're white and you're surrounded by white people and everything is good for you. But man, I started seeing stories, white parents adopting a black boy who was adorable little kid. And then he becomes a teenager and you live in a predominantly white neighborhood and a neighbor calls the cops on your son who's letting himself into the side door of his own house. And so, it was just the very tip of the iceberg, learning of, whoa, there's an entire world of experience that as a white man, I have never had to experience myself. I've never even come close to experiencing this. And it's a learning experience. It's a learning process that that is literally still happening in real time. Just recently, we had an interaction with family saying, we don't see color. So it's okay to just make fun of things that sound racist. I'm going, no, it's not. Especially with the white-black interaction with the history of our country. Literally, the economic engine of our country was literally built on the back of black people. And to say that that has no meaning today, it's just it's just heartbreaking. So, but the thing is, if when you say that to people, when you say that to white people who never have had any point of reference and who have never had any point of reference to this, it sounds like overreaction, and it sounds like I'm just making a big deal about things. So it's a journey. We seek to be loving, we seek to strike balance, and we seek to hold boundaries as well.
Absolutely. And I feel all that and the emotion and just your experiences thus far, Jeff. And I think, what you've highlighted and what Tori highlighted, the reality is that you have to be the voice and the advocate for a child who right now can't speak as loudly for himself as because he's a child, but he's also watching. And we have to hold that, right? And those things aren't okay. And it's up to us, because if not, these little ones think that it is okay because they're looking at us of what are mama and daddy doing in response to this. Can't wait to dive into all of that a little bit deeper. Ashley, same question for you. Any preparation or experiences or things you wish you would have known?
I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, obviously. And again, other than the preparation of going through the classes, like I was talking about already, it was just that mental preparation of what does this look like no matter what. But you have that same concept even when it comes to like physical handicaps or things like that. You still you have to take in all of this, and thankfully during the licensing process, you have that little bit of time to kind of, because you're asking your spouse and yourself, like, is this going to work for our family? Is it not going to work for our family? Those kind of questions. So you've had that preparation, but as far as, a lot of times it's very quick, like in our case, where you get the call the next day, you're being handed a baby. And so very little actual prep. But what I wish I knew, that's such a loaded question, because again, our babies are 1 and 2, and so right now we're mom and dad, like you said, they're brothers and sisters. We laugh because if a picture pops up, if my little boy sees a picture of my husband and I with our other kids, the other babies, like, so we have pictures up of the house, and all the other 5 kids will be their baby pictures or little things or whatever will be up. And if he sees one of those, he'll say, "Is that me?" And he'll point at one of his little brothers or sisters, like, "Is that me?" And I'm like, "No, that's not you." But that's just how he sees that. He doesn't realize that he looks different. And So no, we've got a lot ahead of us, I'm sure.
Mm.
But as far as what I wish I knew, I'll know more about that later.
Yeah.
I'll go back to Tori though, and the hair. That's a whole nother world that I wasn't aware of how different it can be. I have spent more money than I can even say on hair care products, just trying to figure out. I wish there was like a one size fits all, and it's like, okay, well, if you have white hair, this is what you buy, and if you have black hair, this is what you buy. But I'm standing in the aisle of Target, which is where I find myself a lot, and I'm looking at all the hair care products and totally lost. And if there's someone standing by looking too, I am quick to ask, hi, and they give me the weirdest looks when I'm standing there, like, don't you know where you're standing, and then I have to go through this whole spiel of like, well, I'm asking for my children, and then they'll soften a lot. But I don't know. I'm still trying. We're still figuring this out as we go. And even the two of them, they have different hair, and they're telling me, well, just what works for him is not going to work for her necessarily. And so there's not a one size fits all answer. I wish there was. Yeah. And so we're still on that journey. And again, like Tori, I ask my friends and they try to help me too. And I think I've stressed myself out about their hair more than any other aspect so far, because I almost see it as some way that, they can see obviously by my hugs and kisses that we're giving to them constantly when we're out, that we love them so much. But if their hair doesn't look good, I almost see that as they're thinking, you're not caring for them properly. You're not taking the time to care for them properly. You're not trying to learn who they are. And gosh, I've read the books, I've watched the videos, I'm trying so hard. And so it's something that people can visually look at and say, you're doing this right or you're doing this wrong. And it just makes me very self-conscious, if I'm being honest, because I want them to see me as someone who loves them as much as I do. And I'm trying to do my very best by them. And I would hate for people to make a judgment call based on a bad hair day. You know what I mean?
Yes. And that was my whole point. I can really empathize with you, because I kept saying, I can't be the African-American lady out here with my hair always together, or even if I went out with a bad hair day, but then I go out with my 3 Caucasian children and their hair is jacked up or greasy or lopsided, or, it is just not put together.
Right.
Because I already have one set of eyes of judgment on us because we look different. And then you look at them and you're like, oh, they're unkempt. She don't know what she's doing.
Right.
With their hair or their skin or their anything. And so my goal was to become the gold star in my 3 kids, so that there's one less thing that would be a barrier or a source of judgment. So I totally understand.
I feel that. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny too, because the days, as you know, like their skin is a lot drier. We're moisturizing all over the place at our house before we leave. And the one day that I don't, or we get hectic and we go out the door, I'm like, oh no, because I just know that all eyeballs are going to be on us and they're going to think, look, and I will get the speeches. Sometimes people come up and they'll be kind, to be like, you need to know that those babies of yours, you're going to have to moisturize them regularly. And I've been told so many times, you don't give them a bath every day. You don't wash their hair every day. And and strangers will just come and just give helpful tips. And I'm like, thank you. Yes. And I guess I don't find offense to it, because I think in most cases they're trying to be helpful, but I just smile and say, yes, I know we're trying, and we just move on with it. So
there are approximately 11,000 children in North Carolina who need a permanent, safe, and loving home. Can you make a difference? Children's Home Society offers training, resources, and support to help you become a licensed foster parent. Learn more at chsnc.org and start your foster care journey today.
Well, and Ashley, you raise an important topic, and I'd be curious to know from all 3 of you, as you're trying to raise these amazing little people who will turn into big people, and also want them to have a strong sense of identity and belonging, there are a lot of maybe well-intentioned, maybe not, to be very honest with you, people that I'm sure you encounter out in your communities. What are some situations you guys have encountered where maybe questions arose, and how did you handle them, especially when your children are present, to role model Because again, our little ones are watching us, and it's informing who they are and how our parents. Have you guys encountered situations, and if so, how have you handled that? And are there conversations after that back at home? Would love to hear more about that from you all.
So, as Ashley said, there are, especially, and I live in the South. In the South, you get the, my poor babies, feel like everybody has to have an opinion. My issue is because the way we look, people automatically assume that I'm a foster parent and feel like they can come touch my children. And I am like, no, don't come and pat my kid on the head. Don't come try to, oh, hi. No, we don't know you. When the last time you washed your hands? Like, don't touch my children. That is a boundary. We don't do touch. We don't know you. You can say hello and wave to us from afar. And I've ingrained in that from the beginning. Like, I've always been that parent. Like, even if we were visiting family, no, you don't have to go hug and kiss and do whatever to such and such. You can say hello from afar if that's what makes you feel comfortable. So that's a thing that I've given my kids words to say, like, hey, please don't touch me, but hi, how are you doing? But in my instance, I've been called the nanny. I've been asked about a good nanny. I've been asked where the kid's dad. And then when my husband would show up, they were like, where's the other dad? What do you mean with other dad? This is my children's father or stepfather. We have the situation with the bathroom, like, especially when they were potty training and they got to go to every bathroom at every outside of the house establishment.
Yeah.
I'm okay with taking them to whatever bathroom is necessary. My ex-husband was not, because he was afraid that someone would see him taking our daughter, especially, into a public restroom and thinking, oh, this Black man is going to do something terrible to this little Caucasian child. My current husband, he's 6'5". Nobody's approaching him. Just being honest. And that's how he is. But he also told me when we got together that, like, he had to come up with an internal dialogue because he got tired of people coming up to him just trying to touch the kids. And so he says he now goes into the store with a face like, you don't even come up to my kids. You can wave at us, just to protect them, because people are not always kind.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest issues I dealt with that was really hard for me to navigate was school. Mm-hmm. Now, many of you guys may know me. I'm a former educator. 23 years in the system before I transitioned into nonprofit work. I had a teacher who would not, my son's teacher would not directly communicate with me at all from open house day one.
Wow.
And I could not understand, like, I'm the parent that, like, I know what I'm sending to school. I will buy all your Amazon wish list. You said you need me to come chaperone the trip. I know my children's needs because they do have some learning needs. But she would not make eye contact with me. She wouldn't inform me that my son was struggling. She would not email me. And to this day, this is 2 years later, he has still not directly said anything to me. And I cannot understand why. I did have his class change because he was struggling, but she would not communicate with me. I even sent my ex-husband and my husband. She would not communicate with us. And the only thing that I could say was, she felt threatened by the composition of our family because I didn't go into the school like, hey, I'm a know-it-all. I often sent my husband and my ex-husband first because, sometimes when you're a school administrator and you're talking to a teacher, they may feel intimidated, right? So I would send them, but she would not even, like, when we came into the classroom, there was no one there. She would not talk to us and went outside and looked for someone else.
Oh, wow,
So,
Tori.
that made me very uncomfortable. And I knew I had to, right then and there, be very conscious so I can support my son. Because I was like, this don't feel right. And I have to advocate for him. But that was only that one teacher. It's been better since then. But those are those, like, microaggressions that I often get. And I have to question, like, again, if it was reversed, if my children were African American, would it be the same?
Yeah. Tori, for our listeners who may not be familiar with the word microaggression, because again, this is informing and elevating and educating, hopefully, could you just let our listeners know what a microaggression is?
So from my perspective, it's those unspoken things that people do or may say that are meant to be demeaning or kind of like Jeff said, let's joke about this racism because we don't see color anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that happened. And they make you feel small.
Mm-hmm.
They make you, or like feeding into stereotypes and saying those things are true. And so my kids feel that
Mm-hmm.
as they get older, we talk about it. Like, for example, with my daughter's hair, like right now she has pink box braids that are down to her waist. Pink is her favorite color. We love it. But she has some girls that are African American said, you can't wear your hair like that. And so she said, why? And I said, well, what did they say to you? And she said, well, they just said because they haven't seen it before. And I said, well, just because they haven't seen it before doesn't mean you can't wear it. And do you like it? And she was like, yes, girl. She has lots of sass.
Love it.
But also her brothers felt it. They had to protect her as well because they all go to after school together. So my middle son was on par, like telling people, don't touch my sister's hair because we don't know if you washed your hands, like I've always taught them.
Mm.
And why does my sister's hair matter to you?
Yeah.
So they've now learned how to be there and protect each other and respond to each other, especially with my oldest, because my oldest has autism. And so sometimes he doesn't always see the negativity
Mm-hmm.
or he feels it, but he can't quite articulate what has happened to why he feels that way.
Yeah.
And so my youngest two often come back around and tell me so I can help advocate together, give them the words to say to help him, give him the actions to do so we can help him.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you?
You know, we haven't really had to deal a lot with specific situations. I mean, early on, there was a time when, you know, we were a town, we live in a city where the school districts are known for being diverse.
Okay.
We specifically chose this school district in this town to relocate to after COVID. A lot of my family lives back in the Midwest. And I remember one of the first times after Levi had joined us, and it was, you know, he was old enough that, you know, he was a toddler, so maybe 3. And we were going back into the Midwest, and I was in a grocery store, and a lady comes up to me and says, "Oh, is that your son or is he adopted?" And I had never thought about what I would say in that kind of a scenario. Thankfully, I had the presence of mind to say, well, actually, he is our son and he is adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh, okay. And she just kind of walked on. But ever since then, the thing that I've come to realize is that there is such a web and network of unspoken expectations
Mm-hmm.
and power dynamics based on history, based on current political trends, based on people's upbringing. And a lot of the times these things operate in the background and we don't even know it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's I found that good luck telling anyone that they're racist to their face and having them react with any kind of helpful reaction to keep the conversation going, because nobody wants to hear that they're racist.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, racism just shows up in all these tiny little different ways, sometimes in big ways, but it often shows up in tiny ways that belie an underlying mindset that a lot of the times doesn't actually come from a place of ill will. Some of the most racist people in our country are God-fearing Christian followers of Jesus like me and my wife. They don't mean badly. They just don't know what they're saying. They don't know that what they're saying is hurtful. And I can't count the times that I've just bitten my tongue or chosen not to engage, especially on social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, racism is far from being gone. It just takes on different shades. It's way more subtle. A lot of times it's just way more subtle. And it shows up, like Tori was saying, like microaggressions, that if you say, hey, I didn't appreciate that, the number one response will be, what are you making a big deal about that? Just lighten up. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you highlight too, Jeff, that you've learned in your parenting journey, as this is because, like you bravely shared with us before, you're a Caucasian man and that was your reality of the world. That's what you've operated in. And adding children of color into your family was a different reality for you, and embracing that and needing to advocate therein. But there are times when it is not going to be safe to do anything or say anything. And you all now are shepherding these little lives that you're having to help them navigate that. There are times to speak up, for sure. But there are other times where we need to just get home alive. Therefore, we need to close our mouths and we'll deal with it when we get home. Ashley, were you going to share something?
Yeah, I want to share, we've shared kind of the darker side of it, can be the darker side of it. I want to share a positive experience that I had when I was my mind was in a different place. And then it was like a reality check because my family had gone it was really, really early on in when we got baby girl. And I guess we may have had her brother as well at that point. We got him a few months later, but I believe we already had them both. And my family is a very affectionate family. We just hug and love all over each other. And so we're at Bojangles and we're sitting in a booth eating breakfast and they're just all kissing all over their sister and they're hugging on their brother and they're just all, their new little brothers and stuff. And there was this African-American lady sitting at a table near us and she just kept looking at us, but her face did not look happy. And I thought, gosh, I just felt very self-conscious because I'm thinking she doesn't approve of this family dynamic. She probably doesn't approve of all the affection they're showing. They're showing their little siblings. And, and I just felt so self-conscious the whole time I'm eating and she's watching us, so intently. Anyway, so then she's finishing her meal. And so she gets up and starts to walk towards us. And I thought, here we go. I was bracing for what are you going to say? And whatever she's going to say, what are you going to respond? And she says, I just want to tell you guys, I've been watching you this whole meal and I want to thank you for loving these children the way that you are. And she said, I just love watching. She said, I just sat there and just enjoyed watching so much. The love is so obvious. And it's crazy. It became I thought, Ashley, I had to check myself and say, okay, not everybody who looks at you is looking at you crossways, and it's like I had started coming in almost with that mindset.
Yeah.
Even though I had been told that people will probably be okay with it. And even though I had seen some positive interactions, it just, when I would get any kind of look that wasn't a smile, I interpreted that as a negative thing. And I thought, okay, I've got to not judge the reaction either. You know what I know that sounds weird, but I've got to really think just because they're looking at me, it may not be a negative thing. Yeah. And that I was glad that happened early. So that walking in, I then started not seeing, I stopped interpreting every reaction as a negative, and again, there are obvious times when it is, I'm not discrediting those at all. I'm just saying I can't go in thinking it's always going to be that way, and I was just thankful for that interaction and how that went for us.
Yeah. Thank you for raising that. I think we should always anticipate the best in our situations and that most people generally, are good people and also at the same time prepare for if things go astray. Like, what will our response be for everyone to be safe and for our kids to feel like they are seen and loved and are belonging? Maybe for our listeners that may be considering transracial parenting or fostering, or maybe they're in the thick of it right now, are there any resources or community mentors or programs or things that you've done? I know, Jeff, you highlighted that you and your wife moved to a more racially diverse neighborhood, it sounds like, post-COVID, I would assume, although assuming can get you in trouble. But that was partially because of your family composition. So things like that, anything that you guys have done or are doing or considering that you have found helpful that may be helpful to others?
So in my sphere, because I'm starting to see more. So I've seen more now. I follow a family, they're an influencer family, so they're totally out of my realm. I don't have time to record my family all day, but called Raising Cultures.
I follow them too.
And so they are a very diverse family, and I often check out their information, but I found different ways of elevating our diversity. So one of my favorite children's books is called Families, Families, Families. And it talks about the different configurations of families, but it's in the configuration of animals. So you got a tortoise and a sheep, and they adopt some rabbits, and they are a family. Or you got two chickens, and they are a family. And so it just talks about how families can look so totally different, and they still love each other. And it even goes into talking about foster families and adoptive families and grand families. And so one thing that I did to help my children feel more comfortable with our family story is whenever there was story time offered at their school, I would take that book and read it. And I donated a few copies to the school library because I felt like if this was a book my children connected with, they saw us within it and were really able to see that, like, hey, it doesn't matter the animals in your family or the composition of your family. Long as you love each other is what makes your family. So that was a book that we hold dear. It's well worn over here. Another book that we have that I bought early on that really helped my son, as I mentioned, my oldest son is autistic, understand the different variations in skin tone. It's called The Colors of Us. Mm-hmm. And it's about a little girl who lives in a very diverse community, and she's painting her community and she's naming the colors, and there's a very rich description of how she's, seeing that her aunt has golden toned skin and the baker down the street has cinnamon skin, and how all together we are a rich tapestry. And so my children have also very much identified with that book because it helps them see, again, the beauty in our differences, and also seeing that there's so much more than our shades of our skin. I can't say I'm still on a quest. I've not found necessarily a support group per se or a parenting group per se for myself. I have made it my own resolution this year to write a book about my experience, like a children's book for my son's experience. That's a pivotal moment in our life where he really understood that we were different, but also understood that he was loved.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my goals this year, is to figure out how to do that. I have the story. I just don't know how to put it together to get it out there. And then just continuing to share in spaces like this and connect with other families and share, because that's the thing. Like, when you feel like you're in isolation, it's back to what you said, Shannon. You always look at those experiences and approaches as, oh Lord, what am I have to say today? What I got to put my armor on so I can be ready to deflect and defend. But if people just came with genuine, respectful questioning, I don't mind sharing. I'm an open book. I'm all for transracial adoption because every kid deserves a family, no matter what the configuration of that family is. But it's how you approach it. Mm-hmm. And I want to elevate that, like just coming up and saying, hey, you a good nanny. That's not a way, that's not a shoe in, that's not an open door for me. Yeah. Or, somebody telling Ashley all the time, you got to moisturize them children. That's not an open door either. Because you don't think she already figured that out by now. Mm-hmm. Right. So giving people the information on how to upfront, I think would be beneficial. Yeah. If you want to ask us questions, many of us really want to answer, but you need to do it in a respectful way. And then for me, it's trying to figure a way out to build more resources for transracial families that look like mine, because we are out there, we exist, and we want to be loved and supported just like all the other configurations of transracial adoption.
Thank you, Tori. I love that you're writing that book. Last time I talked to Tori, I told her, she said it didn't exist. I said, I think that's a calling for you to write it. What were you going to add, Jeff?
Something that Tori said just really struck a chord with me. Just the idea of getting up in the morning and got to put my armor on, and what am I going to have to say today? How am I going to have to brace myself against the things that I know that are coming? And, just again, to add an element of perspective to this, as a white man, I never have to put on my armor. Mm-hmm. I never have to wonder what people are going to say. And I've never worried about it. I've never had to. And the thing is that I know that there are voices out there who will hear me saying these thoughts, putting these thoughts out there and saying, oh, well, what are we supposed to do? Are you saying that white men should feel guilty about not having to put on your armor? I said, no, there's no need to feel guilty, but it's just, it's the beginning point of learning. Yeah. Just knowing that this is not the way, this is not the reality for the reality that we all live in for ourselves is not the same reality as everyone else lives. And so the thing that I've and my wife and I are continuing to this day to do is we seek to learn what we don't know. And one of the things that we do is we seek to develop relationships with people who match our kids' identity. So, if it's something like, going back to the hair thing, I mean, I go to a chain store to get my hair done. It's not a big deal because I know that there's always going to be someone there. I can walk in, walk out, boom. I take Levi to a barber shop because I want him to understand. I want him to learn some of the culture that's connected with the barber shop in the African American community. I want him to know how to ask for what he wants with his hairstyle. I want him to see Black men being friendly and calm and confident. That's one of the things that we've been doing. And one of the things that my wife and I continue to do is to listen and read the stories of people who are different than us. One of the things, especially biographies and writings, I mean, just for instance, just to go in a direction that none of us have talked about so far. I mean, if you're adopting someone who comes from of Japanese ethnicity, look up a biography of what it was like to be Japanese in the United States during World War II, when there were large numbers of Japanese American citizens who were put in concentration camps. This happened in our country less than 100 years ago. And listen to the stories and understand and just seek to learn without saying, oh, well, this is the way my life has been, therefore this is the way that life is for everyone. One of the books that turned my heart and mind inside out was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And the first time when I started reading that, it's a father, it's a Black father writing an open letter to his Black son. And the first time that I read it, it was hard for me to read as a white man. I said, really? Is it really like this? But man, I read it and I have listened to the stories of people, and I continue to learn, I continue to listen, and it's a journey that I'm still on to this day.
Yeah. Thank you for your openness, Jeff. And I think that's the note, right? It's about continual learning and admit. And if we're all honest, I'm assuming our listeners have maybe seen a picture of me on some of the promos, but I am African American. I by no means know everything about African American culture or people. And as we all were raised in different ways in communities, it doesn't mean that our families are racist, but we all grew up with stereotypes. Let's be real. Let's admit it. Let's talk about it. And we get better by having these open discussions and admitting we don't know what we don't know, and that's okay. We can learn, as Jeff said, but also we have stereotypes and biases, and we can talk about it and grow and change. And until we can do that as a community, a transracial foster and adoptive community, and just a community of good people, we will not get better. So I appreciate so much you guys lifting your voices to our listeners and talking about this very tough but needed topic. As we're kind of closing, for our listeners who, again, there may be people just trying to educate themselves. There may be people who are in the journey right now, fostering transracially or adopting transracially, or maybe those that are considering it. As you guys have had such myriad of experiences and deep experiences, what would be your advice to listeners who are considering opening their home to children who may be of a different race or ethnicity than them?
Intentionality is important. As you accept the roots of your children into your garden, you're going to have to be intentional about growing and catering to those roots so they can flourish. You're going to have to create some intentional friendships. You're going to have to make some intentional changes in possibly where you stay so they can make those connections in the community. You might have to yourself put your personal self in a place of discomfort for your child to find comfort in their identities and themselves. Because even though I didn't really speak on it, my children have a different identity, being that their parents are African American and they're Caucasian. And some people may say, well, are you trying to act African American, or are you trying to be this way? You may have to uproot yourself from institutions you've been a part of for a very long time. For example, I've changed our church because I needed to have my children in a place where, one, they felt comfortable and seen and heard, and two, it was also accepting of their different learning disabilities. So you have to be intentional and be okay with making mistakes, because Lord, I have made them. You will make them. You will have to ask yourself for forgiveness. And I can say that something I've recently reflected upon as a parent is like, because I know where my kids started when they joined my life and joined my family, I am extra hard on myself when I make a mistake. And I'm always trying to strive to make myself a better parent so I can help shape them into being the best people that they can possibly be. But being the best person is also sharing with them like, hey, mommy messed up. Excuse me, mommy made a mistake. Mommy's not perfect today. Yes, we eating cereal for dinner. Yeah, no, I'm gonna just tell the teacher we're not doing homework today because it was just too much of a day. Yeah. And so live in those moments, cherish those moments, but you're going to have to be intentional because unfortunately, just the way as Jeff has put it, just the way our society has been created here, sometimes where we live and where we lie, not by purpose, but it's just not the space that might be accepting to our family. And we need to put our families in a safe space so they can grow and thrive. And one last thing I will say, and then I'll be quiet.
Okay, you're fine.
Give your children the words to say. Children tend to have difficulty or get into fights or internalize when they don't know what to do when presented with challenging situations. For example, my son was receiving some additional supports at school, and somebody said the person that was supporting him was a Caucasian female. They was like, oh, there's your real mom coming back to pick you up. Oh, now, if he didn't have the words to say like a year before, I'm just telling you, my son, because he is a really big lover of his family, he would have punched the kid. I mean, I'm just being honest with you. That was Landon. If he didn't like what you said, he was going to knock you out. And we are a long ways from that. But instead of saying that, he took a break. He told my other son, and my other son handled it in a way of, mind your business. There's no place for you to be talking about my family, and went and told an adult. I taught them to be direct. You don't always have to be kind in situations where people are being unkind or being disrespectful, but have the direct language you need so that you can get yourself to a place of psychological safety so you can get what you need. So you're going to have to, as parents, think about those things people may bring to your family or your children may encounter before they happen, so they can have the confidence in themselves to say, I don't like that. That's not how you speak to me. Love makes a family. Like whatever is needed to be said. So that's just one thing that I've really learned, that giving them those words up front really has helped.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Tori. That's really good. Ashley,
I guess, yeah, I'll go next. I think I would say just be open. Be open. Open your heart to that. If you're nervous about it, just be open to it. Because again, I would say for myself, going in, having had biological children, the first question I have is, how will my heart be able to love another child, regardless of race, as much as I love my own children that I gave birth to? That's the question that I go into foster care with. If I adopt, will it look the same? Will my relationship be the same? Will we be able to bond the same way? And I would say that I've watched that happen, and how the heart can just latch on so quickly to someone and bring them into your family, and it feel the same. And so I say that with another race, when you throw in another race, the question can almost be magnified. When they look different than me, can I interact the same and love the same and bond the same? And I've just watched that happen. And so I would say, if you have a fear of that in any way, God has a way of just the families that he's put together. he puts together, and he just meshed us, and our bond is so strong. And while my heart doesn't see them as a different race, my eyes still do. And what I mean by that in a positive way is I love their beautiful brown skin. I love their beautiful brown eyes and and so my eyes still see the beauty the beauty in them looking the way that they do. And just as I see my blonde haired child and my brunette 16-year-old, my eyes still see that, but I see it and I appreciate it and I love it. And my heart doesn't see their color. Like my heart doesn't. They're just my babies.
Yeah.
So I would just say go in being very open and know that God can do great things with your heart, and he can grow it and mesh it in a way, and he can create a family that was made in a different way, but has the same closeness and bond and attachment that a biological family would have.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ashley.
Yeah.
You get the last word, Mr. Jeff.
Oh, well, I would say one of the things that, in terms of advice for people considering this, I would say, when you look at the way that people in our country have interacted in the early 2020s around COVID, and when you compare how a lot of the country and a lot of the political discourse is interacting today, I'm struck by the difference between the two. And one of the things that I think I kind of over-indexed on at the beginning was in the world of COVID lockdown and George Floyd, it seemed to me that ethnicity mattered more than anything else. And the thing that I am learning is that ethnicity is not the only thing that makes up a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's not ethnicity is not even the most important thing that makes up the human being. Mm-hmm. And the flip side to this is to seek the balance of knowing that ethnicity is a part of all of us. And if we don't acknowledge it, and if we don't learn about how it works and how the rest of the world sees ethnicity, we do us and our families a disservice. So for people who are considering this, I'd say know why you're wanting to do it, and be open to the idea, as Tori and Ashley have said, that it will almost certainly stretch you in ways that are uncomfortable. And the people and the groups around you may not stretch and grow with you. But the journey is absolutely worth it.
Yeah. That's a good last word, Jeff. That was profound. Thank you all for, again, letting us dig into your lives and your family's lives a little bit and elevating. I hope this broadcast is helping our listeners out there who, again, may be living this, may be considering it, because ultimately what we all need is to reach our arms around the kids that need us the most in North Carolina and beyond. And we need more families. We need more foster and adoptive families. So thank you for sharing your journey to unmask and have it be unfiltered. Until next time, thank you all.
Thank you for joining us on In Real Life, Foster Care Unfiltered. If you're interested in becoming a foster parent or supporting children in foster care, visit chsnc.org to learn more. And if you're a current or former foster parent with a story to share, email us at inreallifepodcast@chsnc.org.